most resumes fail in just 11 seconds.
Outdated format does nothing to get you noticed. Absolutely encourage job seekers to put interesting interests. There is something really important to see here by writing the words key successes. I interviewed 13 Canadian executives and I asked them, what would you like to see more from candidates? Handwritten card as a follow-up. It surprises most job seekers, cover letters.
Welcome to the Legacy Podcast, brought to you by MCG Career College, where we sit down with bold thinkers and change makers who are building lives with purpose. I'm your host, Raisa Frida, and today's guest is someone who's taken the world of recruiting, writing, and public speaking by storm. Sheila Musgrove turned a dream with just one IKEA desk into $1 million company, wrote 2 best-selling books, and somehow manages to make career advice hilarious, honest, and unforgettable. Whether you're job hunting, switching lanes, or just looking for a little inspiration, trust me, this one's for you. So please welcome our guest, Sheila Musgrove. Hi, Sheila. How are you today?
Terrific. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks to you for coming here today. Well, Sheila, you have helped numerous people land jobs, and in this economy and labor market, your insight will be very valuable for all of our listeners and viewers. Now, I do want to ask you a very first question, and that's definitely about how to land jobs.
Okay.
Now, for someone who is starting out, a student, a newcomer, or someone switching careers, where should they really start?
That's a great question, because the whole world of job searching, there's a lot to cover. But the very first thing to do, the most incredibly important thing to do, is to create a resume using my 2-step resume formula. It will help not only to showcase your skills, your background, but as we'll talk about a little bit later, it's going to make interviews incredibly easy. The other thing is, particularly if this is your first job out of college, you may be switching careers, as you said, what's really important as well is be focused in your job search. I get calls into my recruitment firm every single day, and when I say, what type of work is it you're looking for? The answer is any job. And that's not a great answer. You do need to be focused, because if I'm just hiring sales reps, for example, but you just graduated from the architectural technology diploma program here, then we're not going to be a fit. So saying exactly what type of job you're looking for is also really important. But really, it all starts with the foundational resume.
Good to know. Thank you so much. And now, Sheila, I know that you have these beautiful books here. Your book, Hired, has helped thousands of people land jobs.
Yes.
They have they received help because they were switching careers. And also they feel more confident after reading the book about how to do job search. And still one of the top ranked resume guides in Canada. Yes. Now, what's really stood out is how you break things down so simply, especially that eye-opening stat that most resumes fail in just 11 seconds. Oh my God. And why is that? Can you please tell us about what's the biggest reason resumes flop so quickly and what actually makes one stand out in that tiny window of time?
Fantastic. Yeah, 11 seconds is not a lot of time at all. And the reason most resumes fail in that short amount of time is because people are using an old school, outdated resume format. Everybody does it. And it's called a functional resume. And a functional resume is that type of resume that's filled with 1 or 2 or even 3 pages of bullets describing your functional job duties. That's why most resumes fail, because that outdated format does nothing to get you noticed. So are you curious what we actually do read in those quick 11 seconds? So in those 11 seconds, very quickly, we skim. First thing we skim is company name and title. start and end dates, and ideally when one position stops, another one starts again. If there is a gap, I'll make note, and if we get to a conversation, we'll cover it then. We also skim education. Now, if I need a specific diploma, degree, certificate, my skim is probably going to start and stop with education. If you've got what I'm looking for, terrific. I'm going to continue reading. If you don't, guess what? 2 seconds and that resume is screened out. Lastly, what I'm also taking a look for are numbers, percentages, and rankings. So if anyone, even if they have them hidden in those old school bullets, we still will pick up on numbers, percentages, rankings. So don't worry, for your viewers, don't worry if you don't have numbers, percentages, rankings in your resume yet. By the end of this podcast, you will know where and why they're really important. And then lastly, I'm just going to take a quick look at your area code to see if I need us to be in the same city. Are we in the same area code? If you have a phone number from a different city, then consider just adding the city at the top of your resume. So that's it. That's what 11 seconds gets you. And at that point, I'm deciding, are we having a further conversation?
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Sheila, because you know what? I'm very passionate about, personally, helping newcomers find jobs. Because when I was new to Canada 12 years ago, there were other immigrants who helped me find my dream jobs. Many of the time, I would say I got my best jobs out of LinkedIn. And lots of people send me resumes. Like yesterday, I got a resume where at the very top, I see that there was no phone number and no city. So I did not know if the person is actually here in Canada or outside Canada, here in Calgary or anywhere else, right? So how would I even make a decision about hiring this person if I don't even know where the person is? Well, thank you so much for sharing those 4 points about what you read, but can you tell me what people don't actually read on resumes? So maybe we can skip that part.
Absolutely. And these are surprising. So I love sharing this part in my book and in my keynote. So there's a number of things that get zero attention. First one that surprises most job seekers, cover letters. Cover letters, unless they're specifically requested, may never actually get read, because when you upload your resume to an applicant tracking system or an ATS system, that software is really smart. It knows which is the cover letter, which is the resume, and they get put into different buckets, if you will. So if I'm coming in and there's 200 new resumes on a Monday morning, well, guess what? I'm taking my 11 seconds and skimming just down the resume tab. So I may never, ever go back to that cover letter. And so, I always say to job seekers, if you feel your application is not complete without the cover letter, do it. Absolutely. But to your point, make sure that things like your name, your phone number, and your email address, if they're in the cover letter, they also need to be on the resume. And lots of people miss that completely. So that one usually shocks people. Next thing that gets zero attention, target position. Now, I'm a big fan of a proper target position, but most people write something like, I'm looking for a rewarding and demanding career in a growth-oriented organization with strong corporate social responsibility.
I have heard this so many times.
Right? How many times? And so I don't know, do you want to be the receptionist or the accounts payable manager? I have no idea. Target position is very valuable. It needs to be the exact position title of the job you're applying on. Now, the next one that gets zero attention, career summary. The first page of your resume is the most valuable real estate, let's call it. That's where we spend most of the time. So if you use a career summary that takes up the top quarter, maybe even third, or even half a page, that's not getting read, well, that's a wasted opportunity. The reason we don't read career summaries is most people, I think, pore over thesaurus.com trying to find the most beautiful, eloquent words that I think as the job seeker you are most interested in. So things like problem solving, leadership, teamwork, attention to detail. Every one of every resume almost looks exactly the same. And if you put in the summary some really big highlights or achievements, they're going to get lost. They need to be in the body of your resume. And we'll talk about how to make sure that those are seen. Last thing that gets zero attention, all of those mind-numbing bullets that describe your functional job duties, they do nothing to get you noticed, and there's a better way. So we actually don't read all those bullets. So all of those things that get zero attention and never ever get read.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm already thinking that after this podcast is done, I will tell my career service team that, hey, be prepared for this amazing podcast that's coming with Sheila. We will be spreading out with all our, like fresh graduates or our current students. So while they're working on their resume, they can definitely work on that.
Amazing.
Perfect. Now I'm going to move to my next question.
Great.
In your book, Hired, you introduce what you call the two-step resume formula. And it's helped thousands of people land interviews, even when they felt stuck or overwhelmed. It's one of the most talked about parts of your workshops and keynotes. So can you give us a quick breakdown of that formula and explain why it works so beautifully in today's job market?
Amazing, yes. So how it came about in my recruitment firm, after working with thousands of really amazing, highly qualified people, that when they came to see me, they were having a hard time getting noticed in their job search, and interviews weren't going well. So I started to work with this formula, and magic happened. People were getting noticed. They were loving going into interviews, filled with confidence. So the formula came into being. So it's really easy. As you mentioned earlier, my books are written in a really easy to use format. And the format, the two-step resume format, is easy as well. Step 1 answers 4 questions. And in step 1 on your resume, in answering these 4 questions, you're going to do so in 1 to 3 sentences. So the questions we want to know are, what level did you report to by title? Briefly, and 5 bullets is not brief. Briefly, what is or was your job? What's your scope or territory, if applicable? And how many other people did the same job? That's step 1. Then step 2 is all about how well you performed. So before you delete those functional bullets, ask yourself, is there something to measure? By saying how big, how much, how many. We want numbers, percentages, rankings. Now, the big part of step 2 on your resume, after the 1 to 3 sentences, you are going to write the words key successes, bold, underline, and then we're going to put bullets, because we've said to the hiring manager, there is something really important to see here by writing the words key successes. And then it's all about your results, numbers, rankings, percentages. That's the two-step resume formula.
Well, thank you so much. Well, that sounds very simple.
It is.
Great.
The bonus with doing the two-step resume formula is that interviews become incredibly easy. Now, who doesn't want an easy job interview where you walk in knowing how to answer one of the toughest questions, which is bring your resume to life for me, or highlight your resume. When a hiring manager is asking about your current and previous jobs, they want to know the answer to 5 questions. But get this, no one asks them. They just hope when I say, tell me about your job at MCG, that you'll tell me something interesting. But in actuality, they're actually after the answer to 5 questions, which are, what level did you report to? Briefly, what is or was your job, your scope, how many others did the same job, and tell me, where were you successful, which is the two-step resume formula. So by writing your resume in that format, interviews are an absolute breeze.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Sheila. My next question is about something that I have faced too when I was new to this country. Job interviews can feel very scary, especially if English is not your first language. So if it's your first professional interview, or it's maybe the first time you're facing an interviewer, what would be the way a person can feel prepared and confident?
That's a very good question. The biggest advice I have for all job seekers, regardless of level of position or anything to do with the position, the best thing to do is rehearse out loud. Rehearse out loud what you are going to say in that interview. Because what that does, it's kind of a cool brain thing. When you rehearse out loud, it commits what you're saying to your short-term memory. Your short-term memory in a pressure situation like an interview never fails you. But in contrast, if you say, you know what, I lived this, I know my background, I'm just going to walk into that interview and hope for the best and wing it, everything's sitting in your long-term memory. And guess what? In a pressure situation, like an interview, if I say to you, tell me what you were doing 5 years ago or 7 years ago, chances are your answer will be, gosh, that was a long time ago. I don't remember. And the minute you say in an interview, I don't remember, it's over, because you've just said you don't have a good memory. Yeah. So rehearse before every single interview, rehearse out loud. And if you are given a question in an interview that's challenging, where you may have stumbled or thought of the great answer after the fact, write that down, put it in your interview prep, and rehearse that for next time. But rehearsing is key.
Thank you so much. Okay, Sheila, now I do have to ask you one question. How do you answer that dreaded tell me about yourself question when it's asked on your maybe very first interview or you're just getting started with your career? Tell me about yourself.
Oh, that's such a tough question, but it will be asked in every single interview. And it usually comes in, that question is almost harder because you don't know, are you asking about me personally or about my background? They always do mean your background. So usually that question can be asked, bring your resume to life for me. Walk me through your entire career history, or others will break it down. Tell me about your current and previous until we get to the very end. Now, that's a beyond tough question to answer if you have an old school functional resume, because you're trying to make sense of 1 or 2 or 3 pages of bullets and make that into a compelling conversation, which is difficult. So if you take the time to do the 2-step resume formula, then you're going to have a format to follow, answering those 5 questions. What level did you report to? Briefly, what is or was your job, your scope, and tell me, where were you successful? You've got a beautiful script to answer that really difficult question. And as we talked about, rehearse out loud, you're going to be the candidate that they can't hear enough from.
Well, that's amazing to know, Sheila. You know what? Whenever we interview people for MCG College, we do ask this question. And every time we ask this question, I normally am the one who say to the people that when you talk about yourself, don't just talk about your work, also talk about who you are as a person. Because every single time when we ask this question, people only talk about, okay, this is my work, this is what I did, this is my education. Yeah. But they never talk about who they are, what they're passionate about, right? And I noticed that even when I went to different interviews, I worked in different colleges before, oil and gas, retail, no one actually asked me about who I am as a person. But at MCG, we're all about like who the person is, what they're passionate about, if they're a teammate or not, right? So is it okay for people to talk about themselves and not just their work?
I love that question. Yeah. And when I coach people, job seekers, one-on-one, the final, once we get through all of their tough stuff on their resume, my last question is, tell me, what are your interests? And people are not expecting that. So I coach people to put an interest section on their resume, because when 2 candidates are equal, that can be what makes the difference. In my book, I share one of my favorite interests was from one of my recruiters. He had applied as a new U of C graduate on a recruitment position. I probably had 250 resumes that came in. And it was his interest that made him stand out and made me call him. And it also made me laugh, which was a bonus. His interest, competitive dodgeball. Who puts that on their resume? And he loves
That's
to this day that I
amazing.
still use that as an example. But I thought that told me about, he's goofy, he's a character, he's an athlete. So I absolutely encourage job seekers to put interesting interests. Now, interests will only get read if they are interesting. So things like skiing, snowboarding, wine tasting, craft beer, baking, reading, all those are fun and interesting, but they don't do anything to make you a standout. So I want your viewers to think about what's their competitive dodgeball. What's their angle? Because you're right, learning about the person is really important. So put that section, the last section on your resume needs to be interests.
Oh, good to know. Well, I will definitely ask my peers to do that.
Yes.
Okay, now my next question is about this uncomfortable question, which is about salary. When people ask, what's your salary expectation on an interview? What should they say? Because even I'm nervous. I'm like, am I asking too much or is it too low?
Right.
What is going on?
That's a scary question, and one that a lot of people have no idea how to handle. So there's two things. One, don't be afraid to put the number out there. But the two questions I always ask are, where are you at now? Where do you want to be? So where are you at now? Where do you want to be? Get comfortable with those numbers. And as you progress through your career, soon, really, all positions are talked about in terms of annual salary. So if you get into an interview and you forget and they ask you for annual salary, just take your hourly number times it by 2, because there's 2,080 working hours in a full-time year. So just a little tip if you're in the hot seat and you forgot to do it annual. Other sources, go to Glassdoor. You can also go to Salary Expert. Now, for a lot of your grads coming into their first post-college program, the salary is very likely going to be set. So that will be, a point of relief, that will be more of, our starting salary is X. Will that be acceptable to you? So it's not necessarily in that first out of school interview, but in subsequent interviews, do get comfortable with, where are you at now? Where do you want to be? And I always say to job seekers, I will tell you if you're too high. I'm also going to tell you if you're too low. And most employers will as well.
That's very good to know. Now, Sheila, I'm going to ask you a question about your second book, which is Unexpected Mentors. Now, it takes a totally fresh and sometimes hilarious approach to career advice. Instead of just focusing on traditional mentors, you talk about finding inspiration and life-changing lessons in surprising, even uncomfortable places like awkward jobs, weird bosses, as you put it, crappy moments. It's a message that really resonates, and especially with people going through career challenges or major, transitions. Can you share one of those crappy career moments from your own journey, and one that felt rough at the time, but ended up being a major turning point?
Amazing. Yes, I loved writing about crappy career moments because it happens to everyone. And as a writer, of course, I had to write about my crappy career moment. Many years ago, in fact, it was my last job in corporate, and I had a really, really, really difficult boss. Did I say really? Very, very difficult boss. So much so that as much as I loved my company and my team, I had to go. I had to make a really tough decision to leave that company and that role that I loved and not know what was going to be next. And so looking back, it was crappy at the time, but looking back, that was the turning point. After I left that corporate job, I consulted for a bit, and then I ended up opening my recruitment firm. So that crappy career moment led me to opening a recruitment firm and my passion of writing books. And I have to say, that crappy career moment took place 20 years ago. It's 20 years ago this week that my company is celebrating 20 years in business.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Can you please share the name of your company?
Yes, it's TAG Recruitment Group, TAG, as in the game of tag.
And what are you guys specialized on?
Yeah, we're in 20 years in the ebbs and flows of the Calgary economy. In 20 years, my company has changed a number of times. So we change change with what's happening in the market. When the economy is strong, we tend to do more permanent search. When the economy is weaker, majority of what we do is contract temporary. So it just depends. And as a generalist firm, that's the fun part. When the phone rings, I never know what that next order is going to be for. So,
wow, it's always a new thing.
Yes, indeed.
That's amazing. Now, I would like to ask you our next question.
Sure.
For anyone listening who feels stuck. Okay, now my next question is about those people who are applying to hundreds of jobs but not hearing back anything. Maybe they're feeling stuck, they're feeling unheard and overwhelmed. What would be an advice for you during this economy to them so that, you know, they can get this push of energy and still keep going?
Amazing. Yeah, job searching is tough. It is, and I cover chapters in both of my books in different ways. So in Hired, I cover a full chapter called Resilience in Your Job Search, because job searching takes work. But the best thing people can do right now, change their resume from a functional resume and change it into what I call a shiny resume using the 2-step resume formula. That is a game changer in getting noticed. And in Unexpected Mentors, I talk about, as you said, I wrote with a bit of humor in that book. So there's a chapter called Where Do You Need a Kick in the Pants in Your Career, which is take action. And so without giving away the ending of the Unexpected Mentors book on why there is a duck on the cover, I'll circle back. So there was a quote that I love quotes and 48 fonts in my book. There's a quote from Arthur Ashe, who was a tennis pro. And I'm going to read it. It is, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. So that quote, in essence, means, I know it's overwhelming, but just start. Just start. Now back to the duck book. So in the last chapter, what I say is, to answer your question of how do you attack that big job search, it is this: don't worry about getting all of your ducks in a row. Just start with one darn duck.
Now that makes sense. Why do you have a rubber ducky on your book cover? Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes.
Now, Sheila, I do have 2 questions that just came up in my mind, and I didn't have it in my script.
Okay.
One question is about, you know, people apply for jobs online like everyone else. And then there are some people who take some extra steps. Beside you and me, there are 2 people in this room that other people cannot see, who can watch us on, on YouTube and stuff. We have our photographer and videographer, Zara, behind the camera. And then we also have Rose. Both of them work in my marketing team. And I do want to share that when they applied for a job, Zara, it's her first job in Canada, and she's almost 1 year here. Yay!
Congratulations.
Now, Zara didn't just apply for a job. She actually went to SIWA, which is a non-for-profit organization that helps lots of newcomers finding jobs. They sent Zara's resume to us. Then we went to a career fair. We also met Zara there because she went there in person to speak with people. And you know what? That kind of stuck out of all the resumes I got, because I know who the person is. I know she has tried 2-3 different mediums to contact us to show her interest. Then we have a person like Rose, where we were hiring admissions people, and she's amazing at sales. She was working in hospitality, but she said, I studied marketing and I want to do marketing, and I will be under training and all these things, but I want to be in marketing. Even though we kind of offered her a higher salary in admissions, she refused it. And she's like, no, this is my passion. I want to learn and I want to be in marketing. That made us feel like, okay, this person is really into it. And I think she's going to do great things. And she is. So what could be some of the extra steps people can take just to, show the company that they really want to be part of it? What would be your suggestion? Because you have way more years of experience than I do, and you know how to get things done.
Amazing. Well, and Zara did some amazing things going to the job fair. You can also follow up, and after meeting you at the job fair, send an email, send a handwritten card to say, great, it was so nice to meet you. I'd love to speak with you further about a role in marketing at MCG. So in my first book, I interviewed 13 Canadian executives, and I asked them, what would you like to see more from candidates? And one of those things was handwritten card as a follow-up.
Oh.
Because no one does it.
Yeah,
no one does it. But think about it. When's the last time you received a card in the mail? Right? When that comes, that makes an impression. So definitely those after follow-ups are really important. Reaching out to the hiring manager through LinkedIn. So you can ask for an introduction, you can send them a connection request, send them an email. So there's lots of things that you can do.
Is it okay to call the...
It is, but be prepared. No, and I have a full chapter on scripts that can be used in my book as well. When I think that people are shocked when they call me and they actually reach me and they don't know what to say. So be prepared. Certainly call, leave a voicemail. Now, make sure you are using both your first name and last name. Big mistake a lot of early career job seekers make. Make sure you repeat your phone number, not once, but twice. Indicate that you are sending your resume for the marketing position and demonstrate your interest. So you can leave a voicemail and just say as well, I just connected with you on LinkedIn. Perfect. You're going to look like a standout.
That's amazing. That's great to know. Sheila, I can see how beautifully dressed you are. And my question is about outfit for interviews. Should people dress up or dress down, or how should they dress up for an interview?
Well, and your outfit is stunning as well.
Thank you.
As you would expect, I do have a full chapter in my book on dressing sharp. Now, the point of dressing sharp is dress for the interview or for the type of work you're looking to work. If you're looking to work in a warehouse, make sure you're in a iron shirt and you're pressed and you're ready to go. Take a look at the company website. That's going to give you an indication of, is this company formal or are they business casual? Take your cue. My advice, always overdress rather than underdress for an interview. And the details count. They really, really do. And I love this. Do you remember the old advice from years ago? Don't wear a lot of makeup. Don't wear red lipstick. You and I would not be getting the job.
Nope.
Don't wear big jewelry. Don't have hair that stands 4 inches on end. All of that advice, I think in my book, I joke, if I followed that advice, you wouldn't recognize me if you saw me.
You need to stand out.
You do, and be you. So authentically, you show up looking like $1 million every day. That's how you want to show up for your interview.
Perfect. Thank you. Now, Sheila, this is the time when I have to ask our last question, but I had such a good time talking to you over the podcast, and I'm thinking how we can collaborate in future.
Amazing.
It's almost like there are so many advices that you can share with interviews and resumes and stuff, and these are so helpful to change a person's life. You never know that one simple advice could empower a woman or a man or anyone for the next big job, right? Now, my question to you is about your legacy. So this podcast is called Legacy Podcast because we bring in community leaders who are making positive impacts in the community. You have done so much work and you're continuing to do wonderful things. What is the legacy that you want to leave behind for your future generations and others to follow?
That is a big question, a big question. So thank you for asking. There's two really. With my recruitment firm, TAG Recruitment, celebrating 20 years in business, we've helped a lot of people to land jobs and to embark on their careers. So I hope my plan is that legacy will continue. But I think my bigger legacy is my books. My first ambition as a little kid was to be a writer and to publish books. So by the time and I wrote about that in Unexpected Mentors, that was a little kid dream of I think I was 7 when I thought, I'm going to be a writer when I grow up.
That's
so
amazing.
Publishing my books has been a big accomplishment for me, but I love hearing from readers all over the world that my books have made them laugh while they were working on their resume, that they are inspired, that they have landed their dream job. So my books will be my legacy. And as long as Amazon and Jeff Bezos are continuing to run, my legacy should be good with those books being available on Amazon for the next many, many years.
That's amazing. And I know that you already won a bestseller awards. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So I actually have 4 books. So first edition and second edition of Hired were both Amazon bestseller. But my second edition, it hit Amazon bestseller in just over 3 hours, which was incredible. And the Ukrainian version, which is here, it's once I changed the cover to be blue and yellow, the Ukrainian colors, that day it hit Amazon bestseller as well. And Unexpected Mentors, that quirky little book just keeps on coming, and it was published in 2019.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Sheila. Now, if our viewers or our students or anyone wants to reach out to you to ask for some advice or maybe to future collaborate with different things, how can they reach out to you?
2 ways. So the TAG website is hideseekfind.com, as in the game of tag, hideseekfind.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find. Just drop me a note and say that you saw me on the Legacy podcast. Feel free to connect. You can also see all of my coaching options on my personal website, which is SheilaMusgrove.com. And on either website, once you go to the website, there'll be a pop-up where you can enroll in my job seeker blog. So I've got, and my blogs are actually funny. So I do ensure that there's humor in job searching, so you can read my blogs and enroll in my blog as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Sheila, for being here with us today on the Legacy Podcast. I really, really, really enjoyed our session today, and I hope our viewers will also reach out to you and they have learned lots of new things today. Well, to our viewers, thank you so much for watching us. If you have learned something amazing about job search and your resumes, feel free to like, share, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also reach out to Sheila directly. She already told you how to reach out to her. And I do want to inspire all of you guys that do not give up. As Sheila said, education is very important in the resume. If you want to get educated, go to different colleges and universities. There are amazing places where you can go. We are also here to help you out. But as you know, MCG stands for Making Communities Great. So keep on inspiring others and keep on making the community great that's around you. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. MCG, Making Communities Great.